Hello, I'm Sarah, welcome back. Today I'm here to talk to you all about our next capsule wardrobe box. This month we've gone for another pattern which can be used as a top or a dress. So without further ado, let's hop on over to the overhead camera and let's take a look inside this month's box and let's get sewing. So here is our latest box, let's take a peek inside. Okay, so the same as last month, we've got two parcels. So we've got one which contains our fabric and one which contains our pattern and haberdashery items. So first, let's take a look at what fabric was sent to you this month. So here we are, here is this month's fabric. So another beautiful viscose fabric, this time in this beautiful leopard blue print. I absolutely love this fabric, perfect for summer, really nice vibrant colours. That is going to be absolutely beautiful. So next, let's have a look what was in our second parcel. Okay, so we've got a colour match thread so we can get sewing that straight away. We have got some universal medium 75 over 11 needles, so we've got some nice fine needles to get that sewn up. We have also got some interfacing here, and last but not least we have got the beautiful pattern this month, which is the Farrah Blouse and dress from Chalk and Notch Patterns. So this is an intermediate pattern, so we are stepping our skill sets up a little bit this month. But the reason I picked this pattern this month was, again, because you could make a blouse if you don't like wearing dresses, or you can make the dress version. It's got some nice details if you don't like to have your arms on show. You can put this little bit of a frill on the sleeve, or you can go sleeveless if the frills isn't your thing. And if you're worried about kind of your chest area, then there is this frill detail that goes in the seam as well. But again, that's optional. You can pop that on, pop that off. It's got a nice little high-low feature going on, but again, optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. So that's the two line drawings of the top. And then that is the dress. So again, really size inclusive with this one, and this one. The eagle eyes amongst you will also notice that it comes with cup sizes, so cups A to B and C to D, so really inclusive. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get measured up, and then I'm going to start to talk you through some tips and tricks that I've got as we sew. So the instructions that come with the Farrah top and dress are absolutely fantastic, by far some of the best instructions that I've seen in a dressmaking pattern for a long time. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make view A, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So we've got these nice ruffle sleeves and a nice high-low hem, and I'm making the top version, not the dress version. If you are going to make the dress version, you make it in exactly the same way, it's just longer. And if you're going to do view B with this ruffle, again, you make the ruffle in exactly the same way as these sleeve ruffles here. What's great about this month's pattern is that it comes in cup sizes A, B or C, D, and you get the option. Now, many of you will think, I wear cup size A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Whatever cup size you wear, you will think, I need to cut out that sewing pattern for that cup size, and that is totally wrong when it comes to the world of sewing. Cup sizes do not mean what cup size we actually wear. So what you need to do is you need to take two measurements for me. Your first is your high bust, which is right across here, the highest part of your bust. And then your next measurement is your full bust, if I just lift up, and it is right across this section here, right across the fullest part of your bust. So there are the two measurements that we need. And now we need to see what the difference between the two measurements are. So if the measurement between your high bust and your low bust is less than 2 inches, you need to be using the AB cup option. If the difference between your high bust and your full bust is between 2 and 4 inches, then you need to be using the C to D cup. And if the difference between your high bust and your full bust is greater than 4 inches, then you need to look at a full bust adjustment. So I hope that's helped just explain a little bit about those bust cup measurements that are on this pattern. Now, don't worry, if you are in the latter part of those measurements and you are greater than 4 inches, these instructions are fantastic and they explain to you how to do the full bust adjustment. So if you go to page 10 in your instruction booklet, there is great wording and photographs to show you how to do that full bust adjustment. So this is a really, really good pattern with really good instructions if you find that sometimes there isn't enough room in the bust area. This pattern will most certainly be the one for you. So now we've spoken about which cup option you should be picking, we're going to jump on over to the overhead camera and I'm going to start to talk you through anything you may find a little bit tricky in this pattern, and we're going to get this Farrah blouse or dress sewn up together. So like I said, the instructions are absolutely fantastic, so work your way through them. The first thing that I think you may struggle with is the sleeve ruffle, if that's the version that you're doing. Now in the instructions you've got an option to line your ruffles or not line your ruffles. She does recommend in the instructions, if you're using a lightweight fabric like we are, this viscose, that you do line them, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the lining options. Okay, so we have got our ruffles here. So we have cut extra ruffles out, so we've got 4 of each piece so that we can line them. So we've got your front ruffle and your back ruffle, and what I would recommend is you to pop a pin in your front ruffle pieces or your back ruffle, whichever way you want to do it, so you can differentiate between the two. So we're just going to sew a front and a back together across the shoulder seam and press that seam open. And then all we're going to do is we're going to pop one on top of the other all the way around, and then we're going to sew that all the way around the large circumference. We're going to trim that seam allowance in half, and then we're just going to give it a few little snips every kind of centimetre and a half, just to help open that curve up. And then once you have done that, here's one I've made earlier, you're just going to give that a really good press all the way around so you've got that nice curve with the seams inside, and that is your ruffles made. So pop those to one side, and then we're going to move on and start to look at our yoke pieces. So now we're going to look at our yoke pieces. We've got a front yoke and a back yoke. 2 pieces have interfacing on and 2 pieces don't, so we're using the pieces that aren't interfaced at the moment. So this is the back yoke, so you've got a gather on the back yoke. I'm not a massive fan of a gather. I don't know what it is, I'm never really happy that they are distributed evenly. And she does give you an option in the instructions to do a box pleat instead. So I have jumped on that and I've done a box pleat. So, and how I've done that, just to make sure it was nice and even, I found the middle of my yoke piece and popped a pin in it, and I sewed from this end to the pin. So I'd got some fabric extra in the middle, and then I sewed from this end to the pin. And then of my main garment fabric, I'd got a big bubble then, and then all I did was just put my finger on, flattened it and sewed across, and that gave me a really nice box pleat. This fabric is quite busy, you probably can't just see it, there you go. So that is how we've attached the back yoke. The front yoke just goes straight on. So we've gone ahead and we've done that, and we have pressed the seam allowance up towards the yoke itself. We don't need to finish that seam allowance because we're going to burrito this top. Okay, so we've attached the facing pieces to our yoke around the neck, and then what we've done is we've pressed the seam allowance to the facing, and we've stitched that seam allowance to the facing, and that's called understitching. So if I just bring that closer, you can just see that row of stitches there just holding that seam allowance to the facing, and then you will see that row of stitching on the inside of your garment. So if ever you've had a garment, a shop bought ready to wear garment, and the inside of the dress is wanting to pop out, it's because they've not finished it properly. They've not done that row of understitching. Just really makes your garment sit much nicer around your neck. So do that, give that really good press. Now we're going to move on to the all important burrito. So This method scares quite a lot of people, and there really is nothing to be scared of, so I'm just going to break it down and show you nice and simply how we're going to do this. So we've got our fabrics right side up. We're going to start at the bottom and we're going to roll that up. So we make a little burrito coming towards the top. There we go. Okay. Then we're going to flip this open, so that's our neck. So we've got this facing with the interface on. We're going to pull it over the top, and this seam allowance here, we're going to match it up with the edge of the facing piece. Let's grab some pins. We're going to pop some pins in all along. As few or as many as you like. So I'll just pop a few in, making sure that that fabric in your burrito isn't getting caught in at the same time. Okay, so now we've got a few pins in holding that in place. Just check that this fabric isn't caught, and it isn't on mine, so that's lovely. And now we're just going to sew down there, remembering we're only using 3/8 of a seam allowance throughout this pattern. So we're just going to sew straight down there, and then I will join you when I've done that. So I've just sewn that along there, and then I've just had a little peek inside to check that I'm happy with all of the stitching, because it's easier to correct it now whilst it's still rolled up like a burrito before I undo it. And I'm happy that that looks good. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my hand through the burrito that we've just made and grab this fabric, and then just slowly turn it out. And there you go, there is your top. So you can see now that the raw edges from our two facing pieces aren't exposed, so they're not going to irritate our back. So we're just going to give that a press, pressing that seam allowance that we've just sewn up. We'll give that a really good press, and that should lay nice and flat. And we'll repeat that on the front as well. And then we're going to get ready to sew our front and our back together at our shoulder seams. Okay, so joining these at the shoulder seams, this is our front here and this is our back. So we've got those right sides together at the shoulder seams. Now we're going to open our shoulders out here, and we're going to open our shoulders out here. We're going to match at the seam, pop some pins in, and sew straight along there, and we'll do that on both shoulders, and that will be our shoulders nice and attached. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I will join you back ready for attaching our ruffles. Okay, so we've got our lovely ruffles sewn on, and then what we've gone ahead and done is edge stitched the side seams, and we've sewn those together using your 3/8 seam allowance. Now we're going to move on to having a little look at the hem. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew a line of stitching about 1 centimetre down from the edge, and then we're going to fold that under, and I've just pressed that with a little iron. So we're going to do that on the bottom and up the side as well. And then where we have got the mitered corner, so if I just maybe show you on the instructions, because I've gone ahead and sewn mine already. So can you see this little mitered corner there? So all we've done is on the corner we've put right sides together, and then just with your seam allowance we've sewn that cross. And then what that's going to enable us to do is we're going to trim that down. Let me grab some scissors. So we're just going to give that a little trim, and then all we're going to do is we're going to turn it back around, give that a little poke, and then that's going to give us the perfect the iron turning itself off. The perfect mitered corner hem. So then we'll give that a little press, and then we're just going to edge stitch that down all the way around. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I will come back to you. Okay, so now we're moving on to the gussets to make that armhole not so large. So we've got our gusset pieces here that we have stay stitched all the way around. And then we've got our bias pieces. Now our bias pieces are much bigger than our gusset, don't worry about that. We're just going to attach that to the top of the gusset with your 3/8 seam allowance. And then you're going to trim the seam allowance in half to reduce the bulk and put a few snips in. And then what you're going to do is you're going to press the seam allowance towards the binding, towards the bias binding. So here's one that I sewed up earlier, so I've done that. So I've pressed the seam allowance towards the binding, and then what I've done is I've folded the binding in half and pressed that all the way around. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold that binding over just to encase that raw edge, and then I'm going to give that a little stitch down and then trim off these extra pieces at the end. And then that's our gussets bound, ready to be inserted into our garment. And now we've got our binding attached to our gussets, we now need to attach our gussets to our top or our dress. So with the right sides of the top or the dress facing up, this is our the bottom of our armhole here, and we've got our gusset. Put that right sides together. We're going to match the bottom point down to the bottom here and pin this all the way up to here. And then with this one as well, we're going to do exactly the same, coming up that side, and then we're going to sew that round with your 3/8 seam allowance so that your gusset finishes in there. And then once we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to finish that seam in its entirety, and then your top is finished. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert my 2 sleeve gussets, and then I will show you what the finished top looks like. So here is the completed Farrah blouse. I absolutely love it. I love the colour of the fabric. I think it really sings that it's summer. Just the little bit of the flute on the sleeves, I just think really gives it that little bit of interest with the gusset detail as well. I'll just step up on this stool. So it's really quite nice and blousey at the front. It's got a nice bit of length to it on the back, so a little bit of bottom coverage, and I've just got some black leggings on just to show you this today. It has got that nice kind of little hem detail there, really quite nice. I really like it. Now the only thing that I will say is I went off my bust measurement. Now I used the A to B cup measurement, and I cut out the size 12. Because generally I would look at the finished garment measurements, see how I want to wear it and fit from there. And for me, there just isn't that room that I want. I kind of feel like it's a little bit tight around the neck, and I think it's to do with these side gussets. So next time I make it, I'm either going to take these side gussets out and carry on with a panel straight down the centre to give it that really blousey feel, because I just feel that for me, the side gussets just come up too high. And then that's pulling at the neck down. So it may correct it by making the size 14, or I may tweak those side panels. So that's just something to bear in mind. Would make sure you've got a little bit of an extra ease in there, because I went for ½ an inch bigger than what my bust measurement was, and the ease just isn't enough for me to be really comfortable in the warmer weather. But other than that, I absolutely love it. So I will do a little alteration to this to make this a really comfortable wear, and I will keep you updated on that. Can't wait to see you in yours. I really hope you enjoy making this top. It's going to be perfect for this beautiful sunshine that we've got coming. Make sure you tag us on social media. Please hit the subscribe button. It really helps YouTube to share our videos to more people. And until next time, keep sewing. See you soon.